Hello, everyone, and welcome to Networking 101 for the Industry Insider session number two. This is for STEM, so think data, engineering, technology, and business degrees. First of all, hi, I'm Ame Lee. I'm a current senior studying business and applied analytics with Marshall and Viterbi. I interned last summer at PwC, where I was an SAP software technology consultant. And I'm originally from LA, also Dutch. I played soccer my whole life. I also like to cook and go outside. So these are the different sessions that we have with the Industry Insiders Initiative, and this is session number two. So let's get into it. Starting off with the goals. Obviously, get your target job. That's what everybody wants to do when they're talking to people. But there's many different factors to this, starting with learning about your target company. You might not actually know if you like the company that you think you want to work at. Apple sounds like a great company, but what is it really like to work there? Also, networking is a great chance to practice speaking with professionals. Any type of interview will require you to be confident when talking to people who are much your seniors. So by networking, you get more comfortable and familiar with this. It's also an option to create a potential mentor-mentee relationship when you're networking, and this can be super helpful. We're going to talk about this later too, but they could benefit you with contacts and things like that in the future. And lastly, networking can help you learn more about your target role. Do you actually want to be a data analyst, or is that just what school is telling you you should be? So here are some methods of networking that we're going to talk about. Specifically, LinkedIn is super popular among college students, and I would highly recommend USC's Trojan Network. Make use of that. LinkedIn's a great place to do that. Cold emailing, company events, Handshake. There's so many different options, and as a student, it's pretty common that you should do many of these methods. So don't just pigeonhole yourself into emailing. You can also go to events on campus and see you might meet someone in person. So just take advantage of everything you have as a Marshall or a Viterbi student. So we're going to start off with this hack called Apollo.io. You might have heard this before, but it's a really, really important tool when you're networking. So this is a way that you can find pretty much anybody's email online without actually asking them for it. So it's a Chrome extension that works very well with LinkedIn. That's probably the most helpful part of it, I would say. And it reveals all the contact information that can be found online of this person. So think, let's say, for example, you are looking at this company and you see a director who looks like someone who has a lot in common with you. Maybe they went to USC and you would love to talk to them, right? They're in the role that you want, whatever. But you don't know how to contact them, right? So you can use Apollo.io to look up their name or use it on LinkedIn to look them up. And most likely you'll be able to get their email through that so that you can cold email them. So what Apollo.io will offer you about a person, usually, this obviously varies, but most of the time, will be their specific job title, also their contact information that is hard to find on your own online. And this is a great thing because sometimes LinkedIn messaging isn't the best option for reaching out to people just because people might be more commonly checking their email inbox than they will their LinkedIn DMs. Also, just a little side note, Apollo lets you like add to sequences and mass email people. I would highly not recommend you use any of these features and simply use Apollo if you're going to use it for finding individual emails. So when you have someone's email, whether it be from, meeting them in person, maybe someone you know gave them an email, or you even just found it on Apollo.io, how are you supposed to email them? Let's start off with recruiters because who you're emailing actually matters a lot and you structure your emails slightly differently. So if you're going to be talking to a recruiter, always send your resume. Even if it's the very first time you're reaching out to them, the first email back will always be asking for your resume. I know this from experience. So just send it off the bat. It'll show that you're prepared and know what they are wanting for you. Um, Also, be very specific about your major, your school year, what jobs you're interested in at that company. Obviously, that's what they're going to want to know if they're going to want to help you in any way. So just by giving them all the information they need right off the bat, super helpful to them. Also, you want to be very specific about what you want from them. Recruiters know a lot about the firm and they're the experts at the firm about the positions that you want to apply for. So you can ask very tailored questions and they'll probably know the answer. And if not, then they can connect you with someone who does. So this kind of ties into the call to action. Anytime you cold email anybody, you make sure that you have a call to action. If you're emailing a recruiter, the call to action should either be more information about the job that you can't find online, so very specific information, or more contacts to speak with. So maybe you want to work at this big company, but you don't know anybody there, and you do have the recruiter's email because you met them at a career fair or something like that, right? You can be like, hey, very interested in this role. I'm doing XYZ. This is why I think I'd be a good fit. But I'd love for you to connect me with people who also work in this, team within the company or are, within the data side of the company or whatever it is, so that I can learn more about what their day-to-day life is to see if this role would be best for me. So something like that, where you can get more contacts from them, and that's like the most organic way to get more people to network with. So this is a great option. If you do have a recruiter's email, definitely make use of it. So this is an example of what it could look like. So, you're saying your name, you say your school level, where you're studying, and what you're studying. Um, how you came about their email, if you met them at the career fair, mention that. If you found it online, mention that, whatever. If you found an email from Paula.io, do not say this part. Just skip that part. And then also just tell them, what you want. So for here, I'm saying I would love the chance to speak with you further, basically just asking for a quick coffee chat with her, and I attached my resume. Okay, so now let's say you're cold email an employee. First, you always want to build a relationship with an employee. With a recruiter, it's a little less important because this is all they do all day, but an employee will be taking extra time out of their day to talk to you if you do network with them. So make sure you're trying to build a relationship with them. Also, you want to be a little bit more general in your interests because they most likely do not know about the roles that are posted that you might be applying to. So just say that you're interested in the company or you're interested in the data team within the company or something like that, right? And the call to action here is being very specific about what you want to learn for them. So either you want more contact information, you want a referral from them, or you just want to talk to them, which I think is the most common thing to ask for. But be careful about referrals. I would never just say, hey, I would love a referral from you. That kind of thing will never go over well. It would be more like, hey, I would love to chat with you more about how I could put my best foot forward when I'm applying, something like that. And then at the end of the call, maybe you ask that. We're going to get into it later. So this is something that could look like, right? So first of all, USC Amelie Coffee Chat. That's a great header that I always use, like read in an email. The USC specifically, if the person went to USC, because they're most likely to open it. Um, this is being very specific. This person I actually contacted on LinkedIn and they gave me his email from that. So I'm just reminding him. And also I gave him a bunch of times if he can call. And that's great if you know someone already is like going to say yes about a call. Let's say you met them before or you've talked to them before. Just give them a bunch of times originally because like the next email is going to be them asking you for times. So the less emails in the thread, the better. That means the less chances you have to get ghosted. So in this case, because I had already talked to him on LinkedIn, it made sense for me to already ask times. Okay, so now if we're looking at LinkedIn, right? You want to go in this order for how to find the person to reach out to on LinkedIn. You're going to start at the company, then you're going to look for USC alums, then you're going to look at the positions you would like, and then finally you're going to find that person. So we're going to walk through this. Starting off, let's say the company you want to work for is Apple, search for Apple, you see the company pop up. The people that pop up underneath, which will be from the school that you're in, USC, or specifically Marshall, Viterbi, whatever it is, sometimes that'll pop up like it does here. Those are the target alumni that you're going to be talking to, okay? Super important that you have on your LinkedIn profile your school and that you verified your school email. Otherwise, that might not pop up and it makes this a lot harder. Also, it'll pop up a few of the first and second degree connections from, your LinkedIn connections underneath. And this is great if you have a lot of LinkedIn connections because then you can make use of that. Let's say you're brand new to LinkedIn and you don't have any connections yet. This is totally fine. But this is a great way to see how your connections can be valuable to you in the future. And that's why everybody always stresses LinkedIn connections. Okay, now you're on the Apple page, right? You're going to go over to the People tab, and this is where you're going to find alumni. So you can add a filter from where they studied. This is how you only filter by people who went to USC. So I just typed in University of Southern California. Okay, once you've done that, you can filter by their actual position. And this is great because let's say, for example, you want to be an engineer. You don't really care about talking to the graphic designer. This might not be a helpful conversation to you at all. So it's really important that you find out what they do and make sure that you're only filtering for people who do something similar to you. So if you go, you can scroll to the side of like all the different filters, and the what they do category is where you would select one or maybe a few that align with your interests. So let's say, for example, you're trying to find a recruiter. This can be kind of tricky, but oftentimes they're under the category human resources or administration. That's just an FYI. Also, works really well for big companies. If you're looking at a company that has, let's say, less than 150, 200 employees, it's probably best to just filter by USC, if that, just because it's less likely that you'll be able to find anyone that went to USC and is in the specific role that you want. But for a big company like Apple, this would make sense. Okay, now you see all the people that are relevant to you. So first, the more mutuals that shows up, the better. So again, if you start expanding your network, especially with people from USC, then this will pop up more and more. And it's super important because if you have a lot of mutuals with someone, they're most likely going to reply versus if you don't have any at all. Also the levels of connections. Remember, first connection is the best, then second, then third. That means just first connection is like direct connection. Second connection is there a connection of a connection, etc. So, what should you say in a message, right? This is an example. And this person actually responded right away. I got this when I was presenting this in person. They were like, is this real? Because he responded at the same exact time. Yes, it's real. And this was just pure luck. Oftentimes, it takes a very long time for them to reply. Um, so, here are some key things about this message. First of all, it's very short. Always make sure it's short. Next, especially if they're a USC alum, always reference USC at least once immediately. And also, I like to say fight on if I have the space at the end. Also give them a slight context on you. So I said business student at USC, current business student. Context on your interest. So UBS, I'm interested in learning about the internship specifically. And then also the call to action. So I'd love to talk with you before I apply is the call to action. Okay, so now talking about informational interviews. People kind of get mixed up because there's coffee chats, there's networking, informational interviews. There's kind of a lot of terms for the same things, but we're going to go over slightly in these differences because there's a little bit of a difference. And I wouldn't get concerned about the nomenclature here, but if someone specifically says that they want an informational interview, this is just what you should be prepared for. Obviously, like I said, there's rarely any difference. So for informational interviews, these are usually over Zoom, so it's a little bit more formal than like a regular just phone call. 15 to 30 minutes, err on the 30-minute side though, like a little bit longer. And it's a little bit more formal, like Q&A. So you're going to have your list of questions ready and they're going to answer them and it's going to be a little bit more formal. And it's specifically organized for helping you apply. Versus just general networking and coffee chats air more on the 15 to 20-minute side and can also be a phone call. I've had many phone calls, which honestly are great because it keeps it super casual and you get a little bit less nervous. There's also a lot of more time to like get to know each other. It's a little bit more of like a relationship building situation. And it might not be very specific. It might just be like, hey, I'm interested in your company, would love to talk to you about it. It might not even be that you're applying, you might just be practicing networking. So this is just a little bit of the differences between what an informational interview is versus just like regular networking or a coffee chat. Okay, so now for some general networking tips. Let's say, for example, you had a call with someone. I would always follow up 1 week later if, you had a call to action and they didn't respond. So, for example, during the call, they were like, yeah, I'd love to connect you with so and so because I think they would also be a great person for you to talk to. And then after the call, you send them an email, thank you so much, whatever, and they don't reply with that person's contact information. I would wait a week because oftentimes people are very busy and they might just be busy and be thinking about it, but just be busy, right? So follow up once, 1 week later. Also, with networking, especially if it's an employee, don't be annoying. And this sounds simple, but people tend to get super excited about talking to someone and take up a lot of time or ask for a bunch of things. And you just need to remember that these people are taking time out of their very busy schedules, which, could be time that they're working on something very important that they have to get done that day to talk to you. So never go over 30 minutes, especially in the first meeting that you have with someone, unless they are the ones making it over 30 minutes and they continue to ask you questions. And also don't ask for too much. If you're going to ask for a referral, you have to do it in a very specific way, which we're going to go over. But don't be asking for 10 different people from their company, just be very reasonable about how you're approaching the situation. Also, respect their time. This is a rule of thumb that I was given that I think is pretty interesting. You don't always have to follow it, but if it's a 30-minute meeting, it kind of could make sense where you end a little bit before the meeting time is supposed to be ending, just so that you're very cognizant of their time. So let's say, for example, the meeting is supposed to be ending at 2:30 p.m. Let's say around 2:26, you're like, okay, well, I have so many more questions, but I'm so grateful for you and the time you took, whatever. Like, I love that contact of that guy you told me about, whatever, you kind of wrap it up then. And they'll be very grateful that you're wrapping it up a few minutes early because sometimes when it gets right on the dot and they might have a meeting starting at 2:30 p.m., you can kind of sense they're getting angsty and you don't really like that feeling. So it's good to always wrap up slightly before. And also, like I kind of just mentioned, follow up with a thank you email after the call. Even if you didn't really like the call, always follow up and just say thank you so much for your time. Part of this also, even if you didn't really click with the person or you found out the company or the role wasn't for you, always save their information, so their email, their phone number, whatever you got from them, because you never know when you could use them in the future. Also be very specific, very clear in what you want. If you go into the call and you're kind of just love to talk to you, and then you don't really have much to say, like they're not going to get the best impression of you. So be very specific on why you're talking to them. And maybe you don't have a role that you're applying to right now. So then you could be very honest about that and be like, I'm exploring my options right now. I'm a freshman in college and I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. And this is super valuable to me. Like saying something like that is totally fine, but make sure you say it and don't just be like, yeah, I'm not really sure? Okay, for a referral specifically, let's say you want to get a referral from someone when you're after you're done talking to them. This is something that most people are like, what? But it's actually really true. Make sure you ask them to do that instead of telling them to do that. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you're at the end of the call and you say something like, I had a great chance to talk with you today. Like, I learned so much and I'm super excited about this role. I would love if you could give me a referral, so that I would have a better chance of making it to the interview stage. That almost sounds like you're telling them to do it, right? Like, I'd love if you would give me, or even if you say like, can you give me a like something, even though that might actually technically be asking if you like broke down the grammar, the best way probably to say that would be not to ask it at all, to be slightly indirect, to say something like, like I loved your call today, our call today. I'm super interested in this role. I'll definitely be applying soon. I was wondering what your company does about the like about referrals and if that's even an option for your company, right? So you never directly even ask them for it. You're just asking in general. And what they're always going to do if you have that question is number one, answer the question, but number two, if they are willing to give you a referral, they will offer it in that next sentence. So they'll say something like, no, unfortunately, our company doesn't do referrals, which could be a lie. Maybe they just didn't like you that much, which is fine. Or they can say, yes, our company does referrals. However, I don't really usually give referrals. That's fine. Then your question's answered. Or best case scenario, they could be like, yes, our company does referrals. I'd love to give you one. I can send you my link. They will always say something like that. There's never been a time where I've said this and they've been like, yeah, our company does referrals and said nothing else, right? So this is just like a really easy way to be able to ask them instead of like trying to pressure them at all. Also, if you have a specific position in mind, make sure you have all the specific information because most likely they're not going to know the information from this company, or about this role. So just make sure that you have the information so that you can let them know like what you're doing, and what you're applying to, and then from there they'll get a better idea of like how they can help you out. Also, like always with questions for the person and not just for the company. So you want to make sure that these questions are tailored to them and that you couldn't have a meeting right after with their coworker and ask the exact same things. Obviously, some questions you totally could, but make sure you do your research on them and maybe it's like they were an intern in the past or they worked at a different company that was a competitor in the past. Like make sure you're asking specific questions because it also shows to them that like you took the time to like really care about this call. Also, the main goal about networking in general is to be memorable. And if you can do this, then you're really golden. Is will they remember you in 6 months and why? So if you have a call with someone, you want to be so memorable that in 6 months they still remember. Maybe they don't remember your name, but they will remember you and be like, oh yeah, like that girl was the one who blah 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 blah, right? So just make sure that like you're putting your best foot forward and you're truly being yourself and you're not acting like a robot. And I know that can be really daunting, especially if you have a call with the director or a more senior person. Like, definitely scary, but just know that these are people trying to help you and they were in your shoes one day. So just try to be your most authentic help self. And that's like the best thing that you could do. Okay, well, there's no Q&A here for this recording, but if you have any questions, you can always email me and I'm happy to answer those, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn and just tell me that you watched the Industry Insiders video so I know who you are. Yeah, thank you so much.